So Charlotte is even nicknamed the Queen City. I mean, it's not for Queen Elizabeth II, but it's still pretty interesting when you think about the World Series being super loaded to the royal family and Pope Francis. And now we have a team in the Super Bowl that is even from a town that is nicknamed the Queen City. And it was actually after Charlotte of whatever. It was King George III's wife. And, King George III is who we gained our independence from. She also happened to die on November 17th of 1818. I don't know, it just sticks out to me because of Peyton Manning being number 18 in his 18th season. But November 17th is the same day that Denver, Colorado was founded in 1858, right? The mirror of 85. Also, Charlotte, Interstate 85 goes through Charlotte to the north. Just wanted to point that out. It goes down in Alabama as well, but interesting, Interstate 85. Also, Prince Charles even became the Prince of Wales in 1958. And strange stuff happens, but on last night when I was looking this up, Prince Charles, if he becomes the king, he would be the oldest person to become the king. The last guy was William IV, who became king when he was 64 years old. A lot of 64 connections. The day before Super Bowl 50 will even be Queen Elizabeth's 64th anniversary as queen. 64 and 46 are the mirrors, so of course tied into Chicago once again. William IV even died at age 71. Just interesting. Super Bowl 50 equals 71. Lots and lots of coding to the number 71 in regards to Moses and the Super Bowl. And when I think about it, they're playing in San Francisco, the team that wears red. I don't know if they do the sea of red, but if everybody wears red, it would be the sea of red there as well. So, literally another Moses connection to Levi Stadium and whatnot. But this right here would be the day that Prince Charles tied King William for being the oldest king or whatever. So after this day, Prince Charles would be the oldest king. So I took this day and I went to 9/23 of 2016. 9/23 has just been a real special number. This is the only one I looked up, and right when I typed it in, the game that I was watching, it stopped it. They went to a commercial and it was at 9:19 in the fourth quarter. And literally, this type of stuff happens to me constantly. It's ridiculous. Even today, when I was at work, I was just at work. I wasn't even on the internet, absolutely nothing. And I was thinking about the Steve Harvey thing and Colombia and the Philippines. And all I could think about was Miss Colombia. And I was like, does Colombia, I know it's named after Christopher Columbus, but is that something short for Charles or something like that? So when I went to the break, I went on break and I went to ESPN.com. That was the first place I went. Literally ads everywhere. Columbia jackets, Columbia, whatever. How in the world is that possible? How do they know my thoughts? You know what I'm saying? It seriously feels like the book 1984. Somehow they know how to, they can read your thoughts. That sounds unbelievable and crazy and whatever, typical conspiracy theorist, but there is some type of weird stuff that is going on. It is weird. So anyway, in this game, or whatever, it went to 9:19 right as I typed 9:19 to 9:23. But remember, in the World Series, the power went out at 9:19 and it came back on at 9:23. So absolutely crazy that I would search that and then the game stops at 9:19. This number I've also talked a lot about. It's the 91 and the 19 mirrors. And literally every president that's been assassinated was tied into these numbers, the 91 and whatnot. But also one of my first YouTube videos was about Ramona Quimby and the movie Baron Munchausen or something like that. And it got a copyright strike, and there was all these weird copyright strikes that happened. And they were all spanned out at a weird time. So I'd fix it, and then they would copyright strike it 262 days later or something like that. I can't remember what it all was. I have a video on it, but 9/19, September 19th is the 262nd day of the year. And then it never got copyright struck. I can't even remember it all. It's all about the number 26, 262, and 62. Tons of it. And I had talked about how YouTube wants me to see this number for whatever the reason, and I kept saying I think something very significant is going to happen on June 26th. And then, of course, they legalized gay marriage. So who knows, I didn't necessarily predict it, but I knew that there was something big because YouTube kept showing me this number, this day or whatever, so by copyright striking my video. Literally, Ramona even adds up to 62 and 26. I mean, just tons of stuff. I talked about the Queen Elizabeth stuff. She became the queen on 2/6 of 52 at age 25, but then later that year she turned 26. She was coronated on 6/2, 62 years ago. We talked about the Pope Francis stuff. Pope Francis came to the United States on his 923rd day as Pope. He went to the White House at 9:23 a.m. on 9/23. 9/23 is the 266th day. He's the 266th Pope. And like I said, the power went out at the World Series at 9:19 and it came back on at 9:23. And I mean, also, notice the score of the game, 81 to 95. You add that up, it adds up to 176, just like my name, just like Back to the Future. So, I mean, I don't know if there's some crazy time warp or what, or if there's some technology that can do this, just like in 1984, or what's going on. It just blows me away. But also, this is Prince Charles' full name, Charles Philip Arthur George. It adds up to 144. Super Bowl, I've talked all about the number 71. Super Bowl 50 equals 71. It's also called the Golden Super Bowl equals 71. If you write out 71, it equals 144. Moses equals 71. There was the 12 tribes of Israel times 12,000 is 144,000. Just really, really seems like they're foreshadowing Prince Charles to become the new King of England. Anyway, I'm going to move on here. I made a new post a little bit ago about the numbers 64 and 46. I mean, I've shown a lot of 46 in regards to Super Bowl 50, and I've talked a lot about the assassination of Barack Obama being tied into Abraham Lincoln. That's why we have the white Bronco versus the Black Panther for the Super Bowl, because it's all about this racial, whatever they're doing, racial divide, civil war type whatever, that's why it ties into Prince Charles, because Prince Charles I was the king when the English Civil War began. He got assassinated as well. But anyway, JFK. So there was a plan to kill JFK in Chicago 3 weeks before he actually died. And JFK died at the age of 46. He died in Dallas, Texas, with the S exception. Dallas, Texas equals 46. Also, Chicago equals 46. His wife even died at the age of 64. I mean, then he was replaced by Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson equals 64. He even died at the age of 64. During his time in 1964 as the president, the Civil Rights Act was passed. Civil rights equals 64. If you write out MLK Jr., it equals 64. And I'm saying all of this because there's a lot of 64 connections, like I just showed with Queen Elizabeth. It's going to be her 64th year as queen. But also, there's so much Batman coding, it's insane. And, the Lorraine Baines from Back to the Future, that is Marty's mom. Marty McFly adds up to 46 even, But Lyndon B. Johnson's middle name is Baines. So, I mean, just really makes me wonder. I've been seeing a lot of Baines coding. I mean, Baines, whatever, A Bane is even a white bridge or a pale bridge. Talked a lot about bridges collapsing. I mean, tons of stuff with this, JFK, John F. Kennedy equals 131, just like Super Bowl. Lyndon Baines Johnson even died on 1/22. The Super Bowl is in San Francisco. 122. Golden State equals 122. And in regards to Obama, if you write out Barack Hussein Obama, it adds up to 64. You know, people call him Barry. Barry, 64. He's the 44th president. 44th equals 64. If he gets assassinated, Joe Biden will become the new president. Joe Biden equals 64. I mean, think of all the racial issues in Michigan this year as well. And even the water thing in Flint. Flint, Michigan equals 71, just like Super Bowl 50. Michigan equals 46 and 64. I mean, 49ers, where the Super Bowl will be played, 64. Denver Broncos equals 64. The Panthers had the record of 15-1, coding them to the 85 Bears. 15-1 equals 64. Interesting too, lots of stuff dealing with Steph Curry. They're almost trying to make him like the new Michael Jordan or something, or the new Kobe Bryant, whatever you want to call it, the new All-Star, greatest player ever. His name adds up to 64. I mean, come on. And then I also said, you know, Queen Elizabeth's 64th anniversary. It was the 64th Miss Universe pageant that happened this year with Steve Harvey messing up the crown. And I talked about how I think maybe they're like, it's like a shift in power or something, like Elizabeth to Charles. I mean, who knows? But Charles's wife, her name, Princess Camilla, even equals 64. Also wanted to point out Michael Jordan, Steve Harvey, Bill Cosby. They all belong to Omega Psi Phi. Omega Psi Phi equals 64. Even the Bridgewater shooting, which was super coded to a lot of things. This fake shooting is absolutely, they're using it for a lot of different coding, but it's tied into the Batman stuff. But it happened at 6:46 a.m., and then the guy who shot him died 6 hours and 46 minutes later in Falls Church, which makes you wonder about Pope Francis being assassinated and whatnot, you know, or Queen Elizabeth or something, you know, the Church of England. Just Falls Church just sticks out. Also, he was 41 years old. Super Bowl equals 41. Lots of other stuff, you know, Skull and Bones equals 41 as well. But he's from San Francisco originally, and then he did it because of racial discrimination and also because of the Charleston shooting. Just another racial divide, you know. And it was the same day that the guy who died, Adam Ward, you know, he ties into Batman. I've talked about that previously, but his wife or girlfriend got a new job in Charlotte, North Carolina even. I mean, come on, it's just so ridiculous. The Panthers even beat the Cardinals with a score that added up to 64. I mean, the game started at 6:40 p.m. The last time the NFL draft was in Chicago was in 1964. And just some other 64s I put in here. Christ is born. Donald Sterling. I mean, come on, right? The racist NBA owner. He adds up to 64. Lots of cancer stories as of late after Obama talked about curing cancer. We've got all these cancer stories. Terminal cancer, 64. The Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, 64. You know, The Dark Knight Rises, The Force Awakens. Interesting, it's 64. Oklahoma Sooners equals 64. Oklahoma is the 46th state even. I talked about the movie The Sum of All Fears and the football game and the nuclear bomb and whatnot. So the sum of all fears adds up to 64. And I just put in Omaha earthquake. There's just, I don't know. It seems like there's been a lot of foreshadowing with the Abraham Lincoln stuff to Lincoln, Nebraska. And then Obama just came to Omaha to give a speech and whatnot. And Omaha earthquake equals 64. We even got this article about a white guy playing Michael Jackson yesterday. And the guy who's going to play him is this guy. His name adds up to 64 and 145. And the 64 and then 145, just like Chicago, Illinois. Just reminds me of the Michael Jackson black or white thing video where he's the Black Panther. Michael Jackson even died at age 50, probably foreshadowing Super Bowl 50. He was the performer at Super Bowl 27 that was on 131, just like Super Bowl. But also, the Super Bowl this year is on 2-7. The halftime score of that game was 28-10. That adds up to 38. You know, the Super Bowl's on the 38th day of the year this year. Panthers equals 38. But anyway, have a great night.